Morrowind, a game you know and some of you might love, infamously known for its very dated melee combat, and for being an internet boomer's favorite Elder Scrolls game. And today, I will be answering a question that few people have ever asked. Can you beat the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind as a pacifist? Now before we begin, let me define what I mean by pacifist for this run. Firstly, I cannot use weapons or spells that deal damage to NPC's health, magicka, or stamina. One major exclusion being the Heart of Lorkhan at the very end of the main quest line, specifically because the game requires you to hit it with Keening and Sunder to finish the final quest. And, let's be honest, it's an inanimate object that has no feelings, therefore does not qualify as an NPC. Secondly, I am able to use some spells that might be considered offensive, such as Paralysis, Command, and Calm, to name a few. And as it turned out, these spell effects in particular would come to be significantly more useful than I thought that they would be. And thirdly, I will be completing the entire main quest line in this video. While it would be easy to just engage speedrun mode and head straight to Red Mountain and yeet dagothwave into oblivion immediately, that would be far too simple for my taste. So without further ado, let's get into Pacifist Morrowind. After naming our character, we do a quick speed run off of the ship and we choose who we are going to be for the run. This run is going to rely heavily on magic, so we were going to go with a high elf and forget to choose a female player character. Being female makes one small quest step easier at one point, but it turns out to not have been a big deal, LMAO. Continuing on to class creation, we want to pick every single skill that we are never going to use, with the exception of Mercantile, for some slight early game bartering bonuses, as well as making our major attributes Strength and Endurance for 10 more health than we would have otherwise. Pick the Atronach Guardian Stone for the chonky magicka number, and then get ready for Pain.exe's adventure. Firstly, we commit anti-Mickey D, and then learn about this Giga-Chad named Caius Cosatus that we are supposed to report to. Sell our legally acquired platter, and ride on our favorite Elder Scrolls insects to Balmora. Instead of heading to our favorite Husbandu in Tamriel, we are instead going to get the telekinesis spell and meet my favorite early game NPC, Naclaria. Now, I can already hear you asking, Gingeroids, why on earth would you go visit this random high elf who sells potions? Because, my fellow gamer, she has some of the best alchemy equipment simply lying around for someone to take, and she sells some very important items. Namely, scales and quama cuddles.
What the fuck is a cuddle? Seriously, I've played this game for 15 years and I still don't know.
Oh, well, even the English language doesn't know. Moving on. We are going to take our fish scales and our beloved mystery Quamacuddle and mix them together for potions of water walking, and then sell them back for more gold than we bought the materials for. But Gingeroids, wouldn't her stock of scales and cuddles just get exhausted after the 10 of each you buy from her? Wrong. She actually replenishes every single alchemy ingredient that you buy from her, resulting in infinite ingredients leading to infinite potions, leading to infinite gold if you are willing to spend the time sitting there. In fact, you can actually just sell ingredients back to her, resulting in her stock permanently increasing by the amount you sell back. For example, buy 10, then sell 10 back. She now has 20. Buy those 20, sell them back. Now she has 40. Forever. Keep up this loop of buying ingredients, selling potions, and increasing her stock of ingredients by selling back her own stuff until you have Alchemy 100. Of course, you could do more or less of this depending on how much grinding you want to do, but I wanted to have a significant amount of gold, so I just stuck with Alchemy 100. Also useful because later I used Alchemy to make my own Restore Magicka potions using Frost Salts and Daedra Hearts. Both can be found and have their stock increased at Naclaria. To reset her gold after you have more potions than she can afford, simply wait 24 hours, then sell your definitely not useless and overpriced potions for her. Rinse and repeat until you are satisfied with results. When finished, speak to our best boy and learn that he wants pain.exe to level up before taking on any jobs for him. So with your newly acquired funds, you need to get skills so you don't die, which is very easy to do with such vast amounts of liquid assets. After exercising your rich person privilege and getting everything through absolutely no effort, go back and take on a few jobs for our man. We acquire an ancient Rubik's Cube to learn about some strange cult and do another fetch quest in which we roleplay as an archaeologist and raid the remains of some ancient local and return it to the organization of the educated. And here, I guess, the game didn't like the fact that we were currently level 1. So, in order to progress further, we stopped by the local guilds and did a little bit of power leveling. We then head to one of the biggest religious cities on Vardenfell to learn more about the strange cults that are rising in Morrowind. We help one of the poor reptile boys being harassed by some dark elves because, dark elves are kind of omega racist. So we tell them to stop because racism bad and escort our pal 10 feet away into a bookstore where he tells us what we want to hear. Then we head into the temple and speak with someone who has beliefs that contradict the current dogma, so naturally, we speak with them in the most private of places, right in the middle of the library, and she tells us about a group of dissenters and a book related to their beliefs that might be of use to Daddy. Swole boy. Caius. So we steal the very secret book that's banned by the temple's doctrine, located in the temple library.
Who designed this? Why would it be in the library?
And we go meet another member of our most discriminated against race in Morrowind, who is currently trying to hide from the IRS.
Do not, I repeat, do not commit tax fraud. The IRS will find you.
We help this smuggler commit tax evasion to learn about another cult that is gaining popularity in the criminal underground of Morrowind, and return to the man himself. Caius wants us to make contact with the native tribes of the land to increase the Empire's circle of informants, so he sends us to talk to one who became a merchant. We act humble, give him a book, and he tells us where his camp is. So we go meet them and try to make friends, but in order to do so, we need to return a bow of the leader's ancestor back to him. So we set out to raid some more dead bodies, and forget that we need to kill a ghost at the very end of the cave in order to take the bow, which is an issue considering the point of the challenge. So, how do we get around this issue? Now, Morrowind, unlike Oblivion or Skyrim, has next to no followers outside of ones that follow you during quests. However, there are 3 notable exceptions. Yorgir, who you get after completing a significant amount of quests for House Redoran. A Dwemer Shock Centurion, who you get after completing a lot of quests for House Telvanni, and 6 potential slaves for you to buy for 1,000 gold each. So we go with the simplest and fastest option, slaves. Now, doing this does result in some very prominent issues that we have to deal with. Firstly, the slaves can only use their bare hands in combat, which isn't necessarily an issue when there are 6 of them. Well, fine, there are 5 of them. They actually absolutely destroy things when they are able to surround an enemy. But having multiple exacerbates another major issue in Morrowind. NPC pathing. As you can see, you can buy all 5 of your prisoners with jobs, but it is nearly impossible to get all of them on the boat for you to take them on your adventure. So, I decided to take one. Enter Caius at home. This man looks near identical to Poppy, so this is clearly the best option. The issue with pathing is genuinely where most of the difficulty of this challenge comes from, as your buddy old pal will constantly get stuck on random geometry or fall off any walkway that is slightly complex. For our last issue with followers, we have their aggro tendencies. If anything managed to take a swing at you, your follower will never stop attacking. It does not matter if you cast a calm spell on both them and the NPC that attacks you. They will always attack. In truth, this is really the only issue when you are traveling from place to place, but a genuine godsend when it comes to defeating enemies that you actually need to kill. You can just cast a calm spell on what you need dead, and your friend will kill it without any risk being put upon your extremely weak follower. Also, one final note on our unassuming soldier. He can only attack with fists, and hand-to-hand combat in Morrowind is very special. In order to kill anything with bare fists in Morrowind, you must first hit the enemy to drain their stamina. Once stamina is depleted, they fall down, and then you can whittle down their health. A very slow process. So, we guide him to our burial cave, forget that his pathing won't let him get past the first room, then leave to make spells which will allow him to actually be useful. When we return, we speed through the first room, get him into the second room through very intended means, and kill the occasional mob that managed to swing at me before I could calm it down. Otherwise, we barrel through and come across our first major challenge with Caius at Home's pathing. Windy rock formations that he will constantly fall down or simply not climb unless guided in a very specific manner. Hold his hand, taxi him through some spooky boys, and have him punch a ghost to death, grab the bow, and head out. Don't forget to have trouble guiding him down the windy rocks. Head back to the natives and become their friends. They are happy and give the info the spymaster wants, so we return to him. He tells us one of the cults is getting bold and needs to be smacked around a little and put back into place. Seeing as though we are not currently able to do that task, our favorite Chadsky, Caius at Home, will have to be up for it. Go to the desert, then the fort nearby, and learn where we need to go. Engage in Morrowind's complicated yet very well done in-universe travel system, and get ready to bully people for having the wrong religion. The plan for this dungeon is to cast a calm spell on enemies before they make any contact with us so our boy does not aggro on them. And then just run by everything to the last room, as we only need to kill one enemy for the quest to complete. Now, things didn't go as smoothly as hoped. There were a couple sections where some of the AI managed to get a swing or two in that caused a 2 to 10 minute delay in the route, but overall, it was a success. In the final chamber, there were too many enemies, so I elected to have Caius at Home kill them all for me, and we got infected with Herpagona syphilades. The way out was the same as the way in, except for one unfortunate tragedy. The entrance to the cave was too much for Morrowind AI pathing to comprehend. After about 10 minutes of doing nothing but trying to force this man up the rocks, a terrible decision had to be made. Our lad, our glorious specimen of peak male performance, had to be left behind to mingle among the crazed cultists. Rest in peace, Caius at Home. You will be remembered. This loss is devastating. How could we ever recover from the loss of this absolute specimen? Who knows? But we will solve the problem of required combat sequences later. So we go back to the Spymaster, and he tells us about an ancient hermit wizard that might be able to cure us of this affliction we received. So we beeline there and give him a little gift, and speak to the last member of an endangered species, return to the guy who made multiple female clones of himself, and he cures us, making us functionally immortal according to in-universe lore. We return once more to the ultimate Chadsky of Morrowind and learn that he is going to be removed from the game, so we bask in his glory for one last time before we have to break someone out of religious imprisonment. At this point, I decided to do a little planning for future ideas I have for later parts of the run. After a quick Google search on conjuration trainers, we travel to a random dude in a shack and give him copious amounts of gold for some sweet, sweet levels. Hashtag rich people privilege strikes again. After the training session, it turns out the gold reserves have gotten low, so we pay our waifu another visit to acquire gold. Head to Vivek to free the religious prisoner. Making another pit stop that is very much out of the way, we head to Solstheim Island in the Blood Moon DLC for a very balanced item, the Mantle of Woe. This robe will let us cast high-level conjuration spells and give us an extra reserve of magicka. Very useful. Now, after our abrupt change of pace, we run to the super secret location of religious dissenters, acquire some papers, and head back to our tribal friends. Now it's time for another fetch quest, which luckily doesn't require killing anything, so spam calm spells away. We collect all the items, rush back to the camp, and learn that we need to collect a ring to officially become the Dark Elf Messiah. We make it to the cave and get jump scared by the in-game audio. Yes, this is unedited, and yes, this is going to be very loud.
Neravari.
We return to the Wise Woman and get some of our last few sets of quests. Before we proceed, I'll break it down for you. Basically, we need to be officially recognized as the Messiah by various tribes of Morrowind and be labeled a warlord of the Great Houses. Now, if you have never played the game before, this is one of, if not the most annoying set of quests, but as I am a professional Morrowind god gamer, this will be over very easily. The first house I like to engage with is House Redoran, as most of the people you need to talk to are all in the same city. Basically, we speak to this guy and save his son who was blatantly kidnapped by a rival counselor, but nobody seems to care for some reason. After that, all the others just agree to let us be their war chief except for the guy who kidnapped the son, who challenges us to a duel to the death, which is not avoidable and must be done. Here is where our new strategy for combat is discovered. Unfortunately, my original recording of this entire process got corrupted, but this did allow me to do some more effective optimizations for letting us kill things. First spell we need is a Fortify Conjuration spell to allow us to cast higher level spells. Second, we need a Command Humanoid,
the leather club's 2 blocks down,
and Command Creature spell,
Yeah, smart ass.
to turn random NPCs and creatures into friends temporarily. And third, we need a calm spell for both people and animals. Now, the spell rotation is actually very simple. We cast our enabler, make a temporary ally, have whatever we want to kill attack us so our new friend aggroes on the attacker, then cast a calm spell onto the attacker. While the NPC is calmed, it will not fight back. However, our temporary ally will always be aggroed onto the NPC. Originally, I thought that I would have to refresh the command spell, but it turns out that doing that is not necessary, and everything becomes significantly easier and less resource intensive. So, we have our new friend kill our political rival, return to our friend, and become the Redoran Hortator. Now on to our next house. Most of the people in question are located in Vivek, so that's where we head to first. First man we talk to is the author of Tamriel's favorite prawn book, who we just need to bribe to get his vote for warlord. Then we need to hunt down various others who just give us what we want when we bribe them. But 2 counselors are beholden to one man's wishes, so we can either blackmail him or kill him to get what we want. Now, in my original recording, I went the blackmail route, but I forgot to make the spells I used for that route, so I decided to have some of his own lackeys kill him instead. Taunt the man a little bit, then run downstairs, cast our command spell on a shirtless man, so he attacks his boss, and let the killing commence. Run to the 2 pushovers, get their vote, head back to our gotcha enjoyer, and let him name us Halalu Hortator. Easy peasy. The last great house is more of the same. Normally the game does allow you to complete this step by killing all but one of the counselors, but we are a man of peace, and would never do such a thing. We go to various magical towers and simply raise our disposition with master wizards and witches, and they give us what we want. Here is where it helps to make a female character, as one of the counselors hates men, but will immediately name us Hortator if we are a woman. Thankfully, we just need to have a high disposition and do a little begging, and she gets off on that, so she agrees to name us Hortator. Now, there is only one counselor that will never say yes to us, so we need to find a way to kill him. Thankfully, there are a couple NPCs and creatures near him that we can cast command on and get them to make him dead. This actually took multiple tries because I am bad at breaking the game, but one friend and speech taunt later, he is dead and we are named the Tilvani Hortator. Now we need to go talk to the Ashlanders and convince them we are Dark Elf Jesus. One of the local tribes just wants a new place to live, so they think a good spot would be in a Daedric shrine where there are currently two factions at war with each other. A very homely place indeed. So we run over there and proceed to have the game crash like 3 times in a row trying to enter. But once we get inside, we run by the locals and talk to the head cultist, and they let the Ashlanders live there if they want. So we return to the camp, lead the wise woman to the shrine, and she names us Dunmer Jesus. Head south a little bit and come across the next Ashlander camp and speak to the leader. He doesn't really feel like naming us the man, so he tells us to kill a vampire in a tomb. Now, this tomb has a few creatures in it, and it took a little longer than it probably should have taken for me to clear. But at the end, only the vampire is alive. In Morrowind, when you are a vampire, you take damage when you are in sunlight, and there is no way to negate this. So, I see if it applies to NPCs as well, and use a command spell to lead the vampire out of the tomb. Thankfully, the sun damage kills him, and I return to camp. The leader then asks us to find a wife, and he will name us the Messiah. So we talk to the wise woman, who tells us we can just buy a slave, dress her up to look like a noblewoman, and he will be happy with that. So we speak to the slave trader for the second time this run, give our new friend some nice clothes and perfume, and lead her back to the Ashlander camp. The leader is happy with who we brought, and surprisingly the former slave is hopeful about her new life, so all in all, a good ending for these people. Now we have one last camp to stop by, and this one is probably the most complicated, as we need to kill about 4 NPCs for completion. Fortunately for us though, we attract a bug on our way in, and simply lure the people we need to kill outside, and let the insects kill them, and loot their bodies for key items. After giving the prospective new leader of the camp some items and a short speech, with each item, he feels confident and names us Dark Elf Jesus. Now, our next step in the journey is to speak with our favorite guy who has achieved and have him give us one of the 3 items we need to kill Dagothwave. Unfortunately, we need to break into a priest's office beforehand, so we buy some new spells to help us break and enter, and after that we simply talk to the boy and get Wraithguard. And we are off to the final step of the main quest line. Head off to the volcano and get Keening and Sunder, then run into the final dungeon. Luckily, Keening requires 0 combat in order to acquire, so that is an easy W. But Sunder is located on the body of an ash vampire, so we need to do some shenanigans in order to get him to die. Luckily, the infinite aggro you can do with friendly NPCs can also be done with enemy NPCs as well. If you are in a certain proximity, the enemy will still try to attack you, but if the NPC you want to die is closer, they will continuously attack them. So the gameplay loop for the last couple combat encounters goes as follows. Cast a command spell, make the temporary ally aggro onto your target, cast a comm spell on the target, and try to make your tenuous ally attack your target instead of you. After all that needlessly complex combat loop, acquire Sunder and run off to meet the man himself, Dagothwave. Run through the dungeon and meet the god himself. Lure one of the enemies from the previous cell into the room with Dagothwave and then start combat with him. Dagothwave will very easily kill whatever NPC we lure in here, so we need to make sure that we keep the calm effect on him in order to proceed. This is somewhat difficult to do as the arena is kind of small and the NPC will aggro onto us very easily, so after a bit of trial and error, we get the small boy to kill the god and enter the final room. Now this is actually one of the easiest rooms of the entire run. All we need to do is jump off the side and cast a levitation effect to fly to the heart of Lorcan, smack it around a bit and get the death dialogue for dagothwave, then fly back up to where we came from, watch the Gundam fall apart, then speak to Azura. She tells us good job and gives us a ring. And with that, we have completed the main quest line of The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind as a pacifist.